This portion is called Ki Tissa, which means when you take, referring to when Moses takes a census of the people. It begins in Exodus chapter 30, verse 11, and ends chapter 34, verse 35. Now I want to consider anger. Does God approve of anger, or does he reprove anger? Now there are two well-known recorded instances when Moses displayed anger, but God responds in two totally different ways. In this portion, Moses descends the mountain, Mount Sinai, with the two tablets in his hands, upon which are written the 10 Commandments, written by the very finger of God. Now, Jewish tradition says that these objects were pure sapphire, such as was beneath the throne of God, the foundation of his throne. Chapter 24, verse 10. Now, as Moses approaches within sound of the Israelite camp, he hears music and singing and is confronted by a scene of idolatry. The people have made a golden calf and are dancing around it. Moses takes the most holy and unique objects in the world, the two tablets, and smashes them to pieces on the ground in a display of anger. Well, when he returns up the mountain, God does not rebuke him for this. He simply instructs him to carve a new pair of stones to replace, quote, the ones you broke. Chapter 34, verse 1. And that's the end of the matter. In other words, God approved of Moses' display of anger and the smashing of the original tablets. That's very interesting. Later on, however, in Numbers chapter 20, the people are thirsty and they complain to Moses. He is instructed by God to speak to the rock, but Moses, in his anger, strikes the rock with his staff twice and water gushes out. Now this time, God rebukes Moses severely. Says this, "Because you did not trust in me to sanctify me in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them." That's Numbers 20, verse 12. Well, the punishment could not have been severer. Moses lived for the time when he would enter the land, and here God takes that reward away from him completely. Now the questions are, what is the difference between the two occasions of Moses' anger that made God respond so differently? And is anger permitted or is it forbidden? What can we understand in these two passages? Well, the Jewish scholar Maimonides said the following, quote, "Anger is an extremely bad attribute. One should train oneself not to get angry, even about something to which anger might be the appropriate response. Stay calm in the face of provocation. This is the right way." So that's pretty clear. It's wrong to get angry. However, Maimonides adds the following, quote, "If one wants to instill reverence and he wishes to bring others back to the good, he should appear to be angry with them so as to reprove them, but he must inwardly remain calm as if he were acting the part of an angry man, but in reality he's not angry at all," unquote. So this is explaining that a display of anger can have a good use. Very interesting. The emotion of anger is very dangerous. We lose our wisdom and sound judgment, but there are times when it is necessary. In fact, it's right and proper to demonstrate anger even though in your heart you're not angry. You're not overpowered by a dangerous emotion. But a point must be made for the good of everyone. If we can't distinguish between a fitting display of anger and the overpowering emotion of anger, we lack a very valuable spiritual tool. Now, all of this puts the scene of Jesus' cleansing of the temple of the money changers and merchants into a totally new light. Jesus displayed anger because it was appropriate, but he didn't lose his temper. He wasn't in a rage. He was not overpowered by an irrational emotion, but was totally in control. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, and Jesus wanted to quote Maimonides, instill reverence and bring others back to the good. Jesus could remain cool in his heart whilst displaying anger outwardly. And this fully explains Paul's instruction, be angry and sin not. Ephesians 4:26. What an attribute self-control is. There is a lot to get angry about, and anger can be a good thing providing it isn't a vehicle with faulty steering and no brakes, achieving nothing but destruction, and not just destruction out there, but destruction in there. There's so much to make us angry today, isn't there? Everybody acknowledges it, and some of the things have become standing jokes. We have things called helplines that don't help. Boastful advertising telling us we have to buy something or other because everybody is buying it. And we see the sign, new and improved, and we ask the salesman, if there's a salesman there, that is, we ask the salesman if they've got any of the original in stock, not any of this new, improved stuff. Tricks are hidden in the tiny print of agreements, catch clauses and false promises, especially from political parties. They'll help the working man and then redefine what a working man is. And what about that sign you get in some shops? We don't accept cash. We don't accept cash. You couldn't make it up. What somebody would think 100 years ago coming to this time, I really don't know. Stores manned wholly by AI, artificial intelligence, whether you like it or not. But of course, it's always for your convenience. No more after-sales services either for a product you bought more than 2 years ago. Just buy a new one, they say. I had it just the other day when I went to a shop. Why don't you buy a new one? Well, I didn't. I sent off for the part, put it in, and it cost me, I think, about £4.50, I think it was. And the new thing would have cost nearly £50. Well, they tell you to buy a new one. I wonder why. But how about doctors? Doctors that are not fully trained. You have to check that now, by the way. You can go online and find the questions you need to ask to find out if your doctor is a doctor. It's incredible. Now, you can still get a plumber all right, but it's much harder to get a proper doctor. Yeah, there's a lot to make us angry. Some people are getting unwell as a result. So we must learn the art of displaying anger when necessary whilst feeling calm within, a sort of detachment. It's not the right answer to say, oh, well, I never get angry. I never complain. I never say what the problem is. I just let it go because that's the Christian way. No, it's not. The Christian way is sometimes to display anger and to express one's displeasure, but to remain cool and calm inside. Jesus did that in the temple, and sometimes we have to. If Jesus hadn't responded with a whip of cords and the overturning of the tables, the message would not have got through to them. But I can't imagine that he spent the rest of the day brooding on it and talking with the disciples about it. And so with us, we are at peace within about a particular issue because we know that all things work together for good. Romans 8. And God has got all things in control. We maintain peace within, but we display anger or strong displeasure or dissatisfaction when necessary. That's true in serious church matters as well as in the broader society. You see, it's no credit being easygoing when action is called for, but we mustn't surrender our peace and become unwell. Self-control. You know, I visited a church a few years ago and they had a beautiful mural at the front of the church hung on the wall. And on it, it had all the fruit of the Spirit on it. But it didn't look quite right to me. And I counted the fruit of the Spirit, and there was 8. And of course there's 9 in the Bible. It was missing 1. And I wonder if you can guess which one was missing. It was self-control. Let's not forget to develop that inner strength. It strikes fear in the heart of our enemies. Self-control, part of the fruit of the Spirit, and so valuable in these last days.